What's up, everybody? My name is Ben, and today we got the iPhone 13 Pro. Now, this has to be the best value iPhone you can get in 2024. It gives you ProMotion, fantastic battery life, some pretty solid cameras. It's hard to say that there's not a better budget iPhone to get in 2024. So let's just check out everything that this thing has to offer. Let's get right into it. Now, what's really unique about the iPhone 13 Pro is that in spite of it being 3 years old, if you see this thing on the street, you're really not going to notice that it is that old of a phone. The only real differentiating factor that you have on the iPhone 13 Pro here compared to the newer iPhone Pro models is having a notch here on the front instead of the dynamic island, and then having stainless steel around the sides instead of the titanium that's in the newer iPhones. But honestly, I kind of like the stainless steel. Outside of the fact that it's heavier, it's incredibly grippy, weirdly. It's super, super grippy, which is different from the aluminum iPhones and I think from the titanium as well. This design really still is impressive in 2024. And even more than that, here you're greeted by a 6.1-inch ProMotion display, which looks absolutely incredible still. You would think after having a few years of this phone being around that iOS would start to feel slow, that it wouldn't feel as smooth, but this ProMotion display is just buttery still, and it completely keeps up with what iOS throws at it. Now, one thing that is very impressive about this phone is the camera improvements that you got with it. Now, 2021 brought us a 12 megapixel sensor for all three of these sensors. So you have the main sensor here at the bottom, and then ultra wide, and then a telephoto, if I remember right. And what that means is you have some pretty solid shots that come out of this thing. Starting with the selfie camera, you have some relatively detailed shots on the front. And what's nice about this 13 Pro is the fact that you can turn it sideways and have more of a wide angle shot. So I'll show you that here just on camera. So here we are talking to the camera, and then if we flip it sideways, it goes out more of a wide angle and fits the kind of vibe more of when you're turning your phone sideways and trying to include more people in the shot. Here is a 4K video that I took, and I'll let you hear the audio that goes along with it. This is also 4K 60, and you can hear the quality of the microphone that we have here. It makes some really nice video. Even though indoors you can tell there's a little bit of graininess when you don't have quite enough light. It doesn't look quite as good, but overall it's a very impressive video camera. And on top of that, you also have a very nice night mode camera. This thing takes some pretty impressive shots when it's dark out. You also have some macro photography, and I'll show you just some more shots right here. You can tell just how much detail that you have when you're checking out some of these outdoor shots. So that's one of the greatest pros about this phone, is just the impressive camera setup that you got here, and it still looks fantastic in 2024. However, the greatest improvement in the camera from the iPhone 12 Pro is in the ultra-wide sensor. The ultra-wide sensor is far bigger on this phone, which means that it lets in a lot more light. So you're going to get just better quality on these ultra-wide shots compared to those older iPhones. Now, one thing I'm less of a fan of with this phone is how it's kind of a brick. Now, I know that I sound like a broken record because I always talk about small phones on my channel, but this phone is pretty big, it's pretty heavy, and it's just a brick with the way that it's squared off around the edges. You don't have much comfort when you're holding it in your hand caseless. And of course, I'm talking from a very small minority of people that like to use their phones caseless. But the newer iPhones that brought the curved edges, the 15 and 16 now, really felt a lot more comfortable in the hand. This gets sharp, it just doesn't feel comfortable for a long time in your hand. And also just the fact that it's stainless steel makes it a lot heavier than those newer phones. So there is some level of fatigue when you're holding it in your hand, especially in bed and it's upside down like this. It's just not very comfortable of a phone. Now, this phone clearly performs very nicely. It doesn't have any problem with the basic iPhone applications, but how much software support does it have? Now, Apple right now is supporting the iPhone XS, which came out in 2018, and that phone now, of course, is 6 years old. This phone, of course, is 3 years newer than that phone. It came out in 2021. So I think it's safe to say that this phone has about 3 years left of software support. And considering that you can see these things for as cheap as $350, $400 on the used market here in the States, I imagine overseas they're probably closer to about $500. Considering that you're still getting 3 years of software support, I think this is a pretty solid deal. Now, the iPhone 13 Pro was known for its good battery. The battery life on this iPhone lasted longer than the iPhone 14 Pro that replaced it in many cases. But that being said, this phone is getting older and the processor inside of it has to work harder for modern versions of iOS. Now, in my usage, I could usually finish a day with still about 50% of my battery left, but I am a pretty light user. I think for most people, this phone will be fine. It'll last all day, but definitely check the battery health of the phone. I wouldn't buy an iPhone of any type with less than maybe 85% battery health. So try to find one with hopefully in the 90s or so of battery health, and you'll be in a really good spot with the iPhone 13 Pro and battery life. So I'm a huge fan of the iPhone 13 Pro in 2024. It's really hard to justify any iPhone that's any newer than this thing because this iPhone gives you so much. The only things you're really missing out on, like I mentioned before, is dynamic island, some of the larger camera sensors, like 48 megapixel camera sensors on the iPhone 14 Pro and 15 series, and just a newer design, like rounded corners, titanium design. Of course, the USB-C port, that does matter to a lot of people. But the core experience here of the iPhone and just the overall feature set, you're not missing out on hardly anything compared to even the latest and greatest iPhones. Huge thumbs up for the iPhone 13 Pro. Well, let me know down below all of your thoughts on the iPhone 13 Pro. I love to hear all of your experiences with it and if you agree with everything that I said about the phone. So let me know down below all of your thoughts and I'll see you in the next one. See ya.